was elected to be a voice for the neighbors of mine in the second ward. It's my responsibility and it's my duty to sit here on the horseshoe and be their voice. Keep in mind, this is not a power struggle between myself and you or the council and the mayor. I have no political aspirations at this point, other than being the best alderman I can possibly be for my neighbors in the second ward. It's my duty and my responsibility to sit up here and have this discussion with the rest of my seatmates, dealing with the frustrations that I hear on a daily basis, not only from the neighbors in my ward, but people on the street. My wife jokes that I can't go to the grocery store, pick up a gallon of milk in less than an hour. That's because people talk to me about numerous items. A lot of it having to do with the second ward, but a lot of it having to do with the frustration with this administration. I can count on one hand over the last year and a half, the number of people that have spoken with me in support of the mayor and the administration. And there's not enough hands in this room right now to be able to count the amount of people who have voiced their displeasure and their frustration and their mistrust in the mayor and the administration. So it is my duty and my responsibility to have this discussion tonight and to have this vote tonight. And it's one that I take very seriously. And I will vote no confidence due to the fact of the overwhelming concerns and frustrations voiced to myself from my neighbors in the ward, from people on the street, and from the employees. Thank you.
Other comments?
Yes, I just have two questions. I noticed that one of the first comments you made in rebuttal was that you have Quincy growing. I just want to know when you're going to post the 2020 census and those numbers on the signs. The previous census was 40,366. To my way of math, 39,463 is less. And I think any of the medical people will tell you our death rate is higher than our birth rate, which isn't a good sign. And the only way you can fix that problem is by starting to admit there is a problem. So I have that question for you. What's your answer?
Well, we've had with that QRAP to be able to get more people to move into the community this last year to help fill the jobs that our largest employers have. And that's continuing to add more eligible people to that list. And yeah, so that's what we're doing. Do I have a specific count? Not in front of me.
Okay,
And
thank
the
you.
signs, and Alderman Farrow, the signs, I know, I think it's Chuck Doublehammer is working on new signs for the entrances, to town. And that is in process of being updated.
Thank you. I do have one more question. So I know you reject the idea, but I've talked to countless wives. I've talked to countless people, including police officers, fire officers, all of these people, about the health insurance. That's just one issue. It's just one. And I know it sounds terrible. It's a relatively small issue except for the people that are affected. And so I will tell you point blank, there are women out there that are putting off mammograms, and you're kidding yourself if you think they aren't. Now that may be their fault, it may be your fault, it may be all our faults, but they are putting it off. There are women that rationing care to their children. I just want to know what you're going to do to make these people whole. Because they're not whole. And I mean, there is just such a tremendous lack of information. And going out for an RFP and ending up in the same place that we started is not an answer. And today I heard a new thing. I just heard a new thing, that when you took office, we had a $2 million deficit in health insurance. I don't know if somebody said that, but that's insane. Because nobody told the alderman that there was a $2 million deficit in health insurance, and now we've saved all that money. Well, how have we saved it? I think you that are wives, you that are husbands, you that have rationed your own health care can answer that. So I would like an answer as to what you're going to do about that.
Yeah. Sherry, do you want to come and answer the question about the change in that reserve, which I think is the biggest part of that adjustment in the health insurance
Yeah,
account?
I've got the document here. So I think you guys all remember, it was in 2020, the then person here at the city who was in charge of healthcare, our final Blue Cross bill of the year had came due and there was no cash. So obviously when a fund, the health insurance fund generates revenues because you charge the employees, and then every pay cycle the employer is putting money into this fund. Well, when it got down to the final payment in April 2020, there was no money. I think the personnel committee authorized a sweep of $285,000. So we all know the police department has been staffing more positions than we can fill. The police department, they did a sweep from them. That was like the biggest department who contributed. So like I know in my department, I had someone who we planned for a +1. If they were a single, that has excess. So we basically took unbudgeted money and swept. That made fiscal 20 it made the year whole. But I think what they're referring to, Alderman Farha, is each year the fund has revenues and expenditures. And I know the unions, when we met during negotiations, we shared all this information with unions. I know we shared with the personnel committee. In fiscal 20, the healthcare ended the year in deficit, and there was a $285,000 sweep. Fiscal 21, the personnel committee approved an $840,000 loan from our self-insurance, which is our MICA fund. We took $840,000, put it in the health insurance fund to make the year whole. You have to have cash flow because what we were charging employees and employer wasn't enough to pay what was going out. So obviously you can't spend more than you have. Fiscal 21 later, that was in October that we did the $840,000. In November, we passed a supplemental approved by this council to transfer, we had excess revenues. We increased all the departmental budgets by $574,000 so that we could sweep it back. You guys approved that action. In January of 21, same fiscal year, we approved another supplemental budget ordinance, increasing healthcare by another $750,000. So when you total the $285,000 from fiscal 20, the $840,000 loan, the $574,000 supplemental that was passed in November, the $750,000 supplemental that we passed in January, $2.449 million was basically injected into health insurance fund because from fiscal 16, when the city chose to leave Robert Bauk as our TPA and we went over to the Blue Cross plan, 5 years straight, there was no premium increases to any city employees, and there were times when the city was underfunding our premium. Wasn't this administration? I wasn't involved. I knew about it. Some of the aldermen, I think, were aware. So this problem that we're in with healthcare started a long time ago, and it's just kind of been the, no one's talking about it. So here we are, and
So, I've talked to you innumerable times. I sense this, but no administration's ever stepped up to the plate and acknowledged this. So I just want to point out, you shouldn't be answering this question. You're not the health insurance expert, and I didn't mean to get you up here, and I'm sorry you had to get up here.
well,
You're not the expert. The expert, the one that sold himself as the expert, should be answering the question. but I appreciate your answer. You don't have to go through it. It's laboring for you, it's not necessary, okay? Thank you.
And I just want to make another note that every employee gets a summary of benefits, and mammograms are free to employees once per calendar year. So obviously, if there's anybody who thinks they should not get one, it's in our plan doc as a covered benefit, one time per year. Just like.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have one. I want to piggyback on everything Alderman Bergman said. I agree with it wholeheartedly. 2 years ago, when I applied for this job and got hired by the public in Ward 1, I promised them that I would be their ears, their eyes, their voice. And I also promised I would question everything. I'm not a rubber stamp. I don't work for this administration. I work for the people. And if I ask tough questions, or that's just the way it is. If I aggravate the administration, sorry. But my obligation is to the residents of Ward 1 and to a certain extent the residents of the whole city. I feel like I've kind of been labeled as one of the 4 that went against the mayor. Absolutely not. Like Alderman Bergman. It's unbelievable, the people that come up to me. I was in the drive-thru at Hardee's last weekend, had 2 guys walk up to me, bang on my window. So what are you gonna do with that mayor? I said, I don't know, let me eat my cheeseburger first, we'll think about it. You know? I mean, it's just all the time. I mean, emails, texts, I mean, they're all over my phone. And Mr. Mayor, I like you. Other people don't. And I gotta hear it, you know? And I speak up for them. And when I speak up for the people, sometimes you're not gonna like it. And they're frustrated, they're mad, they're angry. I can't think of one text, phone call, conversation I've had. Well, I think of one the other night, Kelly's. But what people think they're doing all right. And that was somebody that knew you. Other than that, this has been tough. And I'm going to continue to work for my boss, which is the people of Ward 1. And they're not liking what they see in this building right now. Thank you.
Any other comments?
So I do have a question for a yes vote is a vote of no confidence.
Correct.
A no vote is a vote of confidence, correct?
I would say it would be just the vote of no confidence.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a comment. Whatever happens, obviously I just want the public to know that this vote has no legal, like, it doesn't mean anything. Like, whatever happens tonight, nothing's going to change. But then the fact is that we have to all learn to work together. We have 2 years left, we have 14 aldermen, and we have 1 mayor. We have a police union, and we all have to work together, and we have to be willing to compromise and give things up and listen to each other and help each other. So I hope that whatever happens, we can at least try to do that.
Anything else? Let's do a roll call.
Alderman Ebbing?
I abstain, and I'm going to give you my reason why I'm abstaining. I've only been on this council for only 2 months. I don't have the history or the information as most of you other aldermen have. In the last 3.5 days since this has been on the agenda, I've been phone calls from people who are for the mayor and people who are against this confidence vote. 3.5 days is not enough time for me to evaluate both people who are for or against this. I don't have the experience that you other aldermen have had and the experience that you've gone through in the last 1.5, 2.5 years. And every call I have been getting, whether it's through an email or a phone call, they've all been different stories. Even today and even tonight, I've heard a different story that I've heard before. So I do not have the short time of giving to evaluate all these things I have heard to make a fair vote. So at this point, that is the reason I am abstaining, because I have not had enough time to make a fair evaluation. Thank you.
Alderman Reese,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Uzelak,
No.
Holschlaw,
No.
Fletcher,
Yes, no confidence.
Intra,
No.
Bergman,
Yes, no confidence.
Bauer,
Yes.
Rivera.
Before I get to my vote, I just had a few things that I wanted to say. First of all, thank you to all the Third Ward residents that reached out to me over the last week. I'm rather new. I've been here for 6 months, and to make this decision was quite a feat. It's extremely clear that people are upset. Things need to be addressed desperately. The city of Quincy elected Mayor Trope in 2021, and you will all have another chance to have your voice heard very soon, and I would like you to do that. However, I'm going to vote no tonight. I truly believe that this has only accomplished further division than acting as a true solution to these issues. Thank you.
Alderwoman Mays,
Yes.
Barha,
Yes.
Sassen,
No.
Ryan.
No.
I have 6 ayes, 7 ayes, 6 noes, 1 abstain.
So the motion is approved for a vote of no confidence.